Hello, and welcome to Discussions on Loss and Grief with Ray Warner, the podcast where we shine a light on the often avoided topics of grief and loss, while also getting to know a little bit about some amazing people who are no longer with us. I'm your host, Ray Warner, and on today's episode, we meet Universe Channel Amanda Kunkel. She's going to tell us her story of loss and grief, and I'll let her introduce herself. Tell the audience a little bit about yourself, Amanda.
Hi, thank you. My name's Amanda Kunkel. And like Ray said, I'm a Universe channel, which also, for my particular set of skills, does mean that, yes, I see dead people, which does not make the process of loss and grief any easier. In fact, it has tended to make it more difficult in the aspect of dealing with the humans that are still here and around.
Yeah. That's a little different than we've heard so far on the podcast. Would you like to expand on that at all?
Absolutely. So, my very first sets of loss and grief were the standard grandparents when I was a kid, a friend's brother when I was 17. And during that time period, I was spending more time working with the various paranormal groups that I was with, doing demonic house cleansings out of things that I won't touch with a 10-foot pole, things I didn't know what I was getting myself into in my 20s, but also working on police cold cases with a well known psychic in Hollywood at the time. And so I really got inundated with the energetic side of people passing. It wasn't until my brother passed, let's see, my brother passed in about 11 years ago, and then my nephew, adult nephew, passed about 9 years ago, that I really had the firsthand experience of dealing with somebody so close to me, both passing at a young and fairly unexpected age. One, we were given about a month's notice, the other, none. It was definitely a surprise. And so my process of grief really was unique to everyone around me. It was very isolating because not many people can understand what it's like being the one that everyone goes to when someone dies and you yourself are trying to work through your own grieving process.
So how, if you're open to it, tell the audience a little bit more about the story of what happened when you lost, whether it was your brother or your nephew, whichever you choose to
Mhm.
share.
Yeah, so the most profound loss was my nephew. We were very, very close. We're closer than my brother and I. And his loss was very sudden and he was very, very lost. He didn't know what happened. So there was a bit of me working with him on the other side, as well as having to deal with the family fallout. His partner, his children, his mother, my mother, the um, unknown circumstances, everything was just thrown into chaos. And of course, at that point, my business was pretty new, and I had one of the busiest weeks of business. And instead of, or now I would just say, hey, guess what, everybody, everyone's gonna wait. Everyone everywhere is gonna wait until I go through my own process and take care of myself. I was trying to be everything for everyone and really hustled myself to the point of burnout between the family and denying a bit of my own grief to try to be there for everyone else. Because again, everyone, who did they come to? Me. All of his friends, all of the family. And it was a bit of, it wasn't until I got really, really, really sick with Hashimoto's hypothyroidism that it really made me take a look at the fact that I hadn't fully processed grief
Mm.
and that I was actually quite depressed and needed to kind of cocoon in. And really, I pulled away from the world. I pulled away from family. I pulled away from the majority of friends too at that time, and went within with my own God and angels and guides to really allow myself to grieve and to be held. Because again, there's only one or two people around me that could really understand, colleagues, that what I was going through. Because again,
Yeah.
it's a very unique situation, and now it's hilarious because now that I have the human side down, I have, what I call like your grief starter kit. So when when anyone reaches out to say that someone has passed or even their dog, I'm like, okay, you're gonna go get some Tums, you're gonna go get some melatonin, you're gonna get some tissues, or you're gonna tell someone to bring you this. You're gonna need some ginger ale, Gatorade. But it really took me having to go through the ringer
Mm.
and not have anything or anyone that knew the appropriate way to support me to be able to get out to the other side. And even still, there will be years on his birthday and his death date that I'm okay, no biggie. And then there are years where it just hits me out of nowhere and I have to cancel all my plans.
Yeah.
And there is no warning, right? Everyone would say, well, Amanda, you're so in tune. Shouldn't you know? No,
No, it
no.
doesn't help. It always happens that way.
It always happens that way. It always comes ups and over because I'm still in this human body, living this human experience myself, and I'm supposed to be.
What I'm a lot of what I'm hearing you say is you weren't taking care of yourself. You were trying
Mhm.
to be everything for everybody, but not you. And
Yeah.
that seems to come up a lot with people who love to give, people who have that giving heart. They're like, I am like last on the list. Once everybody else is taken care of, I'll take care of myself. That doesn't work as you
Yeah.
in, you can't pour from an open cup or an empty cup,
Yeah.
especially in this situation where it's like just life is pulling it out, let alone supporting other people.
Yeah.
So how would you, based on your experience, give what advice would you give to somebody who's gone through a loss like this?
Well, like I said, there's the starter pack, your Tums, melatonin. Really, you're not going to know what you're going to need. And so I would just write down a list of things that are simple: food, cleaning, dishes, laundry, alone time.
Hmm.
And so when your friends ask you what you need, you just hand them that list because that can encompass so many things. Maybe the alone time is like you need them to come over and watch your kids so you can go cry. You need that. Maybe it's you need them to clean your dishes and your sink because you haven't gotten to it in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
I didn't realize how a disaster my kitchen was until I had a girlfriend come over. I was asleep. I left the door unlocked for her. I didn't think I was going to fall asleep, and she had cleaned my entire kitchen, and I had not realized the buildup of dishes and trash. So you're not going to realize a lot of things, kind of why you're going general with this list,
Yeah.
right? And on the flip side, when your friends are grieving, gift cards, gift
Hmm.
cards to Uber Eats, or just a Visa gift card, or sending a cleaner, or going and cleaning yourself. They're in decision fatigue. You'll be in decision fatigue. I'm kind of flipping between you and they there. And there's no right or wrong way. It's like ask for the help that you don't know you need. because you're going to need a lot of help. You're not going to think you really need all your help. Like you're just, it's going to be this like brain fog, right?
Yep.
And that's why when you have a pretty open-ended list like that, it gives people the ability to have a general idea, fill in the gaps themselves, right? And remember, this is one thing I always love sharing is they want to help. They don't know how to help. And so it's not you asking or taking away from them or their time or their resources. You're actually making them feel like they're making a difference for you. So let them make a difference for you. That's super important because so many people just feel like they're taking time from others and you're not.
Yeah.
And that even goes because people will stop asking you for help after about a month. They'll even stop asking about your loved one and will act like life has just moved on. And for them, it has. But it's okay to remind them. You're gonna have to be a little proactive with this one. It's okay to remind them that you're still grieving, that you still need help. They just simply don't realize it. Even those that have gone through the process, they'll be like, wait, how many months has it been? Oh, yeah, shit. It's only been like 2 months. Crap. Yeah, like, of course she's going through a hard time, or he or whomever.
Yeah.
Right. So always reach out and ask for help when it gets to that point.
Yeah. Well, and something that's come up a lot with my previous conversations on the podcast is how hard it can be in those times to brain. It's like no thoughts. No, it's like
Mhm.
I don't even know what I want. I don't know how to ask for it. I just come and do it without me
Yep.
having to ask.
Yep. And that's where really having a bestie that can advocate for you. You hear that like when you get sick or have cancer and you go to the doctor, you're supposed to have somebody that can advocate for you. It's sort of the same way. Choose a friend. They will actually choose you. They will come to you
Yeah.
and be like, no, really, I got you. What do you need? And so that is advocate for me.
Mhm.
When I don't know what I want and you see me spiraling down, advocate for me. So often in our society now, um, we're not sure if we should overstep friendship bounds because we're used to having clear boundaries and standards and like you do you. Um, and unless you've experienced grief firsthand, you're not really quite sure, other than a Google search,
Yeah.
um, what that person needs. And it's like, it's okay to give them too much. They'll tell you when to stop. They're not going to tell you what they need. It's kind of like the flip side. It's,
Yeah.
um, you're not hounding them. And even if they react in anger at a certain point, that's just the grief. Like that. I had my sister scream at like somebody in a clothing store and then break down crying because they asked her if she needed help. They didn't know clearly that she was searching for a funeral dress for her kid. But these outbursts have nothing to do with you or your friendship, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
And if you do outburst on a friend, it's okay. They love you. They totally get it.
Yeah.
They totally get it.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's another thing, that comes up a lot in our conversations. Give yourself grace. Let yourself fall apart, and
Yeah,
don't make yourself wrong for it.
exactly. Exactly.
So we kind of touched on this a little bit. Any specific advice you would give the family and friends of people who just experienced a loss, how to be around them, other than what we've already talked about?
Yes. Well, and this is one where you can really use your own like empathic side, which everyone has. Sometimes they're going to need distracted. They're going to need a good laugh. They're going to need a movie. They're going to need you to put them in a car and just drive them around while talking nonsense to distract them. really it's feel out what they need. And if you need to get them into the shower and into a different set of clothes, like, do it. Other times, people react where they will be laughing and giggling and almost sort of pretending like nothing happened, which, sure, do a mental health check, but at the same time, realize that their emotions are just going to constantly be changing. And to keep in touch with the other friends and family that are there with them all the time. That way, everyone's kind of keeping tabs on, okay, how are they actually doing? What do they actually need? It's a group effort.
Mhm.
And that's okay. We're so used to this very hyper independent lifestyle and family style in our culture. And when really, like, that whole saying, like, it takes a village, it fucking takes a village. And that's okay. That's okay. And if you don't know what to do, that's okay. Ask someone else that was around them in the last 24 hours what they need,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And it's okay to talk about the person they lost. Don't be like scared of it. Oh, that's a taboo topic because that seems to happen a lot in society. It's like, oh, I don't want to talk about that person in presence of the person who loved them the most because it'll
Mhm.
trigger them. That's
Mhm.
the. I don't know if you experience anything like that.
Yes, I did. And yeah, so always they love hearing fun news stories that they haven't heard before, and they love talking about that person and really use their name. Um, the only time I've seen it kind of go downhill a little bit is if alcohol is involved,
Mm.
right? But, sometimes uh and I mean mass amounts of alcohol. I don't mean just like they've had a
Yeah.
drink. Like mass amounts of alcohol can turn into like the hysterical crying, which, as you know, is just that person trying to cope.
Hmm.
So again, going back to judging this, like, what's going on, reading the room, what do they need at this point? You know, a lot of times it's just hearing those fun news stories they've never heard before, or pulling up that video that they didn't know that you took of the loved one, right? That's I always there's once a year on Facebook, my Facebook memories show, you don't see my nephew, but you hear him counting. He's teaching one of his kids how to count.
Oh,
You can
nice.
hear his voice. So hearing the voice again, right? Not just seeing pictures, but the video, the audio is also super huge. So like share that stuff. Even if you're like it's like 3 years from now and you find it on your phone. Like, oh, I forgot I took this. Like send it to the loved ones. They will greatly appreciate that. It won't derail their day or anything
Yeah,
like that.
yeah. Yeah, it's funny. My first wife passed away. Meredith passed away 29 years ago on Sunday. So this before
Mm.
all of this internet stuff. I mean, very infancy of the internet. And I happened to, on Google, I was searching for something and I happened to come across, I don't know if you remember Usenet, the Usenet news groups.
Mm-mm.
It was like the very early internet. And she had posted something on there about Monty Python and it came up in the Google search. Like, oh my God, this is awesome. I don't remember ever seeing it before.
That's really cool. I like that.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Having pictures and videos and audio, and that's especially for me where it's been so long that all that stuff's not digital. It didn't,
Yeah,
that was not a thing back then in 1995.
it was not a thing. That is right. Yeah.
So, last question. This is the last question that I always ask. Please share your nephew with the audience so that we feel like we get to know him, so that we like he's here.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. So let's see. Dylan, I was 10 when Dylan was born. So that would have made him like 23, 24 when he passed. He, him and I were raised like brother and sister, and we're closer in age than his mother and I. And he was a little hellion spitfire right out of the bat. I remember I got in trouble because he wanted to dye his hair, so I dyed his hair with Sun In when that was a thing. with blonde tips. Yeah, we got into stuff like that. But he was a cook at a restaurant. He worked at various different restaurants. Probably the most compassionate person I've ever met. Like he's given like people the clothes off of his back and was very much like a conspiracy theorist in a way. Like we'd sit and talk about like aliens and the government and like the paranormal stuff and not many people do that, by the way.
Mhm.
In my world, it's normal, but in the general world, it is not normal. Probably my only family member too that would sit and we could have these like hour long, just deep discussions and pulling around like apart the purpose of life and the universe and the galaxy and all of that. So he has three kids. His eldest will graduate high school this year.
Wow.
So I
Wow.
know, right? He has three kids, all of which look like him in a different way. But I remember he said something that stuck out, and it's really going to tell you the type of person he was. He was talking to his one kid about his kids, like, when I grow up, I want to work at the grocery store. And, Dylan, having grown up poor, looked at him and said, son, you're going to own the grocery store.
Wow.
So yeah, he was very much about anything you put your mind to, you can do, you can create whatever it is that you want to create. And um really didn't judge that many people, honestly. You know how you walk into a room, like he had all these tattoos, and you would think that he would be this very like judgmental person looking at it, but he was one of the like, whatever, you do you, it's all
Mhm.
good, and just loved to meet new people. So yeah, that was like give you a good sense of Dylan.
Yeah, I mean, fun loving, caring, loving. That's what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah. Then we have this moment where so I used to get really bad nosebleeds and I actually had to have like one of my sides of my nose cauterized. But before that happened, it would happen when I would get really stressed out. My blood pressure would come up. And so when we were at the funeral home and we had to go like see the body before the cremation, I leaned down and I kissed him on the forehead and I stood up and luckily I felt it and I caught the blood and I was like, "Yep, Dylan, I bled on your body. I almost bled all over you." That would have been classic Aunt Amanda. Like we go to say our last respects and I'm gushing blood because then it did. It just like it gushed, but um that like right there he would have thought was freaking hilarious. Like he was laughing as I was saying that, like his spirit was like
Mhm.
yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was definitely one of those wonderful universe gave us this lovely laughing kind of like happy but weird happy
Yeah,
memory
yeah,
during such a tragic time.
that's awesome that you have that kind of thoughts of him whenever you think of him. Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you.
And thank you for joining us. Tell the audience how they can connect with you, how they can find you.
Absolutely. My name is Amanda Kunkel, and I have, of course, a website, amandakunkel.com. I'm most active on Facebook. Come friend and follow me on my magical journeys.
Awesome. I'll make sure all that links are in the show notes. And thank you again. It was awesome having you on. And I'm your host, Ray Warner, and we'll be back next week with another amazing guest.